On the air, on your phone, and online, it's classic hits of the 60s, 70s, and 80s on 1240 The Brew. 1240 KOKL, Okmulgee, Oklahoma.
SJ, welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. Shche, Stongo, Gary Fife, Jaho, Jeff Gedos, Mvskoke Radio, Mabo Hedged, Oweshkiz. Welcome to our program on this cool and crisp November morning, November the 1st coming up. And your Sidewalk Superintendent report on the Council House. It is being lit up in the evenings with some beautiful colors from what I understand. So if you're downtown Okmulgee, come by and check it out. We have a lot of material to share this morning, so everything is going to be packed pretty tight. First of all, American Indian Movement activist Dennis Banks passed away this past Sunday, and we'll have a remembrance of from one of the American Indian Movement AIM officials, Bill Means, about Dennis and his career, what he meant. The second slot is we'll hear from a daughter of a cancer survivor, Logan Ashley, about remembering her mother and how it affects her. That piece is produced by Devaney Luxinger of Mvskoke Media. And finally, for those of you who could not make it into Tulsa, we have the sounds of the Council Oak ceremony. We'll be wrapping the show up, so since we've got a lot to go, let's get started. This is Bill Means with the American Indian Movement about talking about the recent leader there, Dennis Banks, who just passed away on Sunday.
Yes, my name is Bill Means, and I'm here I'm with this radio station to give an interview regarding Dennis Banks, who has passed on to the spirit world and is presently in state in Minnesota.
All right, Bill, first of all, a little bit of just a touch about yourself and your involvement with AIM and how you knew Dennis.
Well, first of all, I met Dennis at Alcatraz in 1969 when I returned from Vietnam. And it was at that time that my brother Russell introduced me to Dennis, and from that time on, we have been friends. And I love him like a brother, and he's missed by many of our people throughout America and even in various countries around the world.
Now, most of us Native peoples are aware of the American Indian Movement and its rather dynamic leadership. Of course, your brother Russell, who passed away a few years ago, but also we knew Dennis, and that Dennis actually came through our neck of the woods on a couple of occasions. Let's kind of look at him for a second here and kind of tell me about his position in AIM and the result of his dedication.
Dennis Banks was elected as the chairman of AIM and served in that capacity till his death. And, of course, he was an amazing organizer that took the American Indian Movement and organized official chapters in our country here in South Dakota throughout various reservations. So he was well known here on the Pine Ridge Reservation from the early, shall I say, late 60s throughout the rest of his life. He ended up having children on the Pine Ridge, and so he made many, many trips back to Pine Ridge, not only to visit his children, but friends he had made as a resident here on Pine Ridge, and at one time served as chancellor of one of our elementary schools at Oglala, South Dakota, known as Loneman School. And so he has close contacts, he has family here, and many people are very sad as these days go by concerning his funeral arrangements and what's going on with his passing.
Now, when I had the chance to meet him, it was usually in an urban setting. And the presence of the American Indian movement and its leadership always seemed to stir some excitement among urban Indians who had, up until then, not really been a large presence on the national scene. Now, Dennis spent a lot of time in places like Minneapolis and St. Paul and managed to get a lot of people really excited about becoming more active in Native rights. Can you tell me just a bit about that?
Yes, as I had previously said, Dennis was an amazing organizer. And matter of fact, he is the one most responsible for bringing the AIM to the Pine Ridge Reservation. In 1972, we had a major event that sort of propelled AIM into the national spotlight. It was at Gordon, Nebraska, and involved the killing of Raymond Yellow Thunder, where in the American Legion Club in Gordon, Raymond Yellow Thunder was set upon by some white ranchers who were having a dance on Saturday night at the local American Legion Club, where they dragged Raymond Yellow Thunder off the streets into the American Legion dance, burned the bottom of his feet with cigarettes, and made him dance Indian for the white ranchers. Thereupon, or subsequently, they dragged him outside, beat him to death, and he was found 3 days later in the trunk of a car. And since nobody was charged, his family came to an American Indian movement meeting that we were having in Omaha, Nebraska. And so AIM, under Dennis' leadership and other AIM leaders, including my brother Russell, then came to Gordon, Nebraska, or to Pine Ridge, where we had a major march that included over 100 cars in a caravan, and we went to Gordon, Nebraska, and we were able to do some investigation and also found the people responsible. Their name was the Hare brothers, responsible for the killing of Raymond Yellow Thunder. And this is the type of treatment that our people suffered in border towns across America, including in Oklahoma, where one of their good friends of the American Indian movement was hanged in a jail in Oklahoma. And I remember we went there as American Indian movement, and we had a big march there, and I can't recall the town or even the individual's name, but I'll try to remember it as we go.
Now, right after the Yellow Thunder incident, which I do remember, there was the confrontation at Wounded Knee, where AIM occupied that village for over 70 days and battled what they were saying was corruption within the tribal government there, and of course the United States government was in some relationship conspiring against Indian people. And AIM became even more well known at that point. Now, of course, Dennis was a key figure in that. And do you recall how he felt about why they did that?
Of course, because of not only the ongoing racism in South Dakota and across America about and to Indian people, but the fact that it was being, shall we say, hidden from the regular media outlets throughout the country, so that he felt it was time to bring attention. And the way that we brought attention was we were invited by the people of Pine Ridge not only to fight the corruption of the tribal government, but also to bring out the issue of treaty rights. That in fact, yes, we had rights to stand as nation to nation, which is how several presidents in the last near history have said that we should be recognized on nation-to-nation basis in dealing with the federal government. So I think he was a visionary that saw the corruption and turning that corruption into a teachable moment for America and the world as far as the conditions and the racism that existed in the Indian communities and near the Indian communities in these border towns of America.
Now, because of that activism, many Native young people were stirred to take the battle up in several fashions. Of course, many on the streets, some in the schools and the legal profession, and in other forms. And many of the laws and enforcement of treaty rights that we enjoy today saw its start in many of the activities of AIM. Now, with that kind of record behind you now, what is the feeling now that Dennis has just passed away just a matter of days ago? I mean, is it empty? What are you hearing, and how do you feel?
Well, on one hand, of course, we're very sad and trying to uplift the family and those who were close to Dennis by our support, but also to remember his legacy. I think that he was close to people throughout the country because he had a series of runs across the country that dealt with various local and national issues such as alcoholism, education, and other issues that are close to many people's hearts. But on the other hand, he was willing to turn over the reins, so to speak, to local leadership, and especially our young people in the educational systems of America, to say that it's time for you to challenge these institutions that continue to oppress our people, steal our land and our resources, and to keep in mind that treaty rights are the basis of our relationship to the United States of America.
We remember Dennis's last visit through our part of the country. He was on one of the long walks on health issues, I believe diabetes and other related kinds of things. Now, will there be some perhaps person or some sort of effort then to kind of take up that banner and fill in where Dennis left off?
Well, I think Dennis, it was one of a kind. So whether or not some young person or a person that he may have trained will take up the issues that he himself brought about in terms of this national attention as he moved across the country on various runs and various national activities, I think that remains to be seen. But I'm sure that he has stirred the imagination, the commitment of young people on behalf of the issues that are so important to his legacy, those issues of racism, treaty rights, human rights. And so we look very confidently at our younger generation that many have been stirred by the words and actions of Dennis Banks, and his legacy will live on.
Mr. Means, is there any final thoughts you'd care to leave with us?
I just want to say that we hope that those people across America that supported the issues of American Indian movement and supported the issues that Dennis Banks was involved in will continue, even in a more open and dedicated fashion, such as we saw at Standing Rock this past year, where local issues of extractive industries operating on our lands arbitrarily and unilaterally will continue to be met with resistance by our local peoples.
All right. That was Bill Means, Oglala, Lakota. He was one of the leadership of the American Indian movement. Dennis Banks's traditional Ojibwe name was Nawachumig, which means in the center of the ground. Dennis will be returned to the earth on his home reservation of Leech Lake in Minnesota. We're going to take a short pause here, and then we'll be back with the words of a cancer survivor's daughter.
Has created an online survey to get feedback from you about our coverage and operations. Participants will be entered to win artwork from Mvskoke Creek artist Dana Tiger. At the beginning, you will be asked for your name, phone number, and email. The survey consists of 18 questions that are either multiple choice or in a yes or no format. Visit www.mvskokemedia.com to participate. The survey is open November 1st through November 30th. Winners will be announced December 1st.
Mvskoke Media colleague Devaney Luxinger spoke with Logan Ashley about remembrances of her mother, who was dealing with the issue of cancer, and she's produced this wonderful piece on that experience.
I was 9. It was December of 2005, like 3 days before Christmas, and so I was in like the 4th grade, and it's been almost 12 years now, so it was a while ago. I came home, and so I knew something was wrong. Like, my mom was just not acting okay, and it was around Christmas, and I, of course, I was young. I remember that day so vividly because she set me down, and she was like, "Logan, you remember how I've been kind of sick, and we've been going to the doctor a lot?" And I was like, "Yeah," and she was like, "I have cancer." And it was like, what's that, Mom? Like, she had to explain it all over to me. Over and over again in my head, I just remember thinking, what is cancer? Like, what's it gonna do? How am I gonna get past? Like, I was little, so I didn't understand really what was coming. I didn't understand how big it was. And so as I went, it got better, but I wasn't really for sure. I just know that when she set me down, her face was just pale. And I'd never seen my mom talk to me about something so serious. After learning what it was going to do and like how bad it was terrifying. I think it made us best friends. We went through everything, just me and her pretty much. We had a lot of family and friends, which was amazing. Without them, we wouldn't have done it, but it was just me and my mom. So we were best friends anyways, and going through that made us so much closer. I got to go to a couple chemo treatments with her, which nobody was supposed to be back there. The nurse became friends with my mom. She snuck me back there, and I sat for hours while she got chemo sometimes, and I would color with her, and she would just pull me out of school just to do that with her because I didn't know at the time how much time we were gonna have. She was so far into her diagnosis. I mean, she was at stage 3B, so that's pretty far into what was going on. And at the time, it wasn't something I was really thinking about, losing my mom, but spending a lot of more time with her was really nice. Now we're best friends. I mean, we do everything together still. Every year we go to the American Cancer Society Relay for Life, and we just spend the whole day together, and we try and fundraise and do things like that, and it's just so nice because still to this day, I don't think we would have had that bond had I not almost lost her, because there's a difference in when you love somebody and they're there all the time, and then when you think you might lose them. So she became my best friend after all that. So it was cold outside, and I was jumping on the trampoline, and my mom called me in, and she's like, "Logan, come inside." And I ran in, and she had scissors and a pair of clippers in her hands, and she's like, we're shaving my hair. And I was like, what? And she's like, she ran her fingers through her hair, and a bunch, like a big wad of it came out, and she said, "I can't do it anymore." I was like, okay. And at the time, I was like, this is so cool, I'm cutting my mom's hair, so I'm cutting it all off, and I fell in love with the way the scissors felt in my hands. And I cut it off, and at the time, I was just cutting away, and then we just took, clippers to it, and she was bald after that. My mom had nothing left, the little bit of spikes that were gonna fall away on her pillow later that night because the chemo was just taking everything from her. So I remembered, even to this day, like, that is what got me into this. If it wasn't for my mom, I don't know if I would have found my passion, and I love doing hair. Like, it is everything about me is because of it, and I started it because she had to lose all of hers. And at the time, I wasn't thinking about it. I know that when I was little, it was just like I was having fun. It didn't hit me emotionally until about a week later. I was looking at her, and she just wasn't my mom anymore. you don't realize how much hair does for you. And I remember just sitting back and looking at her thinking, oh my, what if I was bald? Would I still feel beautiful? Like, would I still feel, I felt so, my heart was broken because when I looked at her, she just didn't look like my mom anymore. It was cool to get to do all of it, but the aftermath and the sitting back part of it, looking like that's not my mom. That's not what she looks like. And a week later, we had gone to a fair, and my mom she was talking to me, and when she turned around, he was like, oh, $10.50, sir. And she just turned around, and she just kind of looked, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry. And that's when I was like, hair defines a person. I mean, it really does. It can. If you let it define you, it can. And to me, it's just hair. You know, for her, she had long, beautiful locks. I mean, she had never cut it short. It was who she was. She had that big, long, curly hair, and she loved it. And so when she lost it, she lost who she was. And she was really, really lost for a little bit, but she took it like a champ, and she had a beautiful head, and she just showed me positivity. And it made me feel like anybody can be beautiful no matter what, because even though she was sick, she still tried to draw her eyebrows on, and she still tried to, you know, put a little hat on to make herself look better, and she would get up every day and go to the store. No matter how she felt, she would do it. So I don't know, the emotion was sad for a little bit, but then it was empowering. It kind of showed me that you can do what you want to do no matter how you look. So she has been in remission for 11 years now, so that's such a good feeling to even say. When she came home, and after her mastectomy, she came home and she had to start radiation. It wasn't until after tons and tons of radiation that she finally got to say that she was cancer-free. And when I heard those words, it was so nice, because I didn't know what was going to happen. To think about, like, 6 months before that, she had set me down and she had asked me, Logan, if something happens, who do you want to live with? And I'm like, what do you mean, who am I going to live with, Mom? What do you mean? She's like, Logan, it's getting really bad, and the diagnosis that I have is a really hard one. It was called HER2, it's a Herceptin, and it was a really bad form of cancer. And I was like, okay. She's like, so if something happens to me, where do you want to live? And I remember when she came home and she was in remission, those words were playing through my head. Where do you want to live? Where do you want to live? And it's like, I get to keep my mom. Like, she beat this. She worked. She fought so hard and so long, and she beat it. And it was such a good feeling, because I got to keep her. She was my person. Like, I don't have anybody else. Like, I just have her. So it was nice when she came home. We were jumping up and down, and we went, it was so much fun. I remember hugging her for what felt like ever. And sometimes, like, once a year, when that American Cancer Society comes around, that Relay for Life, and I get to just hug her again because we're another year down, like, it's the best feeling in the whole world. It is so important to get your mammograms. I cannot stress that enough. I cannot monthly breast exams. Check yourself every month. When you're in the shower, give yourself a breast exam, men and women. You would be amazed at how many men get breast cancer. It is such a big deal. If my mom would not have seen that lump and seen that when she went, she didn't even know she had a lump. She got a mammogram, and that's how she found out. That mammogram saved her life. Had she not had that, I don't know what we would have done. And if it wasn't for Creek Nation, we would have never been able to do that. So we were extremely, extremely grateful that they got her there to see what was going on. She later got on Project Women. If you have never heard of Project Women, everyone needs to visit it, men and women both, because they give free mammograms at hospitals around Oklahoma. And if you don't have insurance, if you can't afford it, it gives you a reason.
Logan Ashley, as interviewed by our colleague at Mvskoke Media, Devaney Luxinger. And thank you, Devaney. Let's move on now. For those of you who couldn't make it to the ceremony in downtown Tulsa last month, the Council Oak rededication was a wonderful event. Made us all proud to be Mvskoke. So for those of you who could not make it there, we have some of the sounds and comments about the Council Oak.
important time of the year for us. It's great when we can gather here and come to the place where we first arrived after we were forced from our homes in Alabama and Georgia. Excuse me. On this very land is where we staked our claim and made our home. Nearly the entire city was Mvskoke territory. This oak tree over here to my left served as a historic landmark in our history. It is a visible reminder today of our journey. This tree is one of the oldest trees known in the state of Oklahoma. The Lojaboga tribal town settled next to the tree here on this hilltop. Tulsa's mother town was Tallahassee, known also as Tallahassee, Alabama. Excuse me. For years, Tulsa was known as Tallahassee Lojaboga. As more white settlers moved into the area, they would call it Tallahassee, over which time it was shortened to Tulsa. I remember my dad called it T-Town. That's what he called it. We have held ceremonies here, feasts, and games, and we again hold a ceremony today. The Lojaboga held their council meetings here. That's why the site is known as the Creek Nation Council Oak Park, and this site is listed on the National Registry of Historic Places. We're Tulsa's first inhabitants. We created the first city hall here. We named the city, and as Mvskoke, we are more than 84,000 citizens strong. According to the Mvskoke Creek Nation geospatial records, more than 70% of modern-day Tulsa is Mvskoke territory. Our ceremony, sacred fires from our original homeland, were brought here through much sacrifice and hardship. And that one fire still burns, depicted in that sculpture you see to our left. Today marks the day of our arrival, not so much a celebration, but a testament of our ancestors' journey, a voyage in which we will never forget. I'd like to point out that the Council Oak Tree was here when we arrived almost 200 years ago, and it still flourishes, just as us, the Mvskoke people, flourish. Mado.
Thank you, Chief. I would like to introduce Second Chief Lewis Hicks.
Good morning, and want to thank you all for being here today. I really didn't know I was going to have to get up here and speak today, but just want to tell everybody thank you, and you know, it's a good day to the Creator have given us a good day to have a ceremony. You know, in the last 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, I guess, we've been traveling and seen a lot of country between, I don't know, like I said, about 3 weeks ago. One of the places that we had gone was in Georgia, and I went down there for a ceremony called We're Still Here. And it was a ceremony that depicted that you know, the lands that we come from, our homelands and things like that. And you know, it was a good thing. No, it was just Creek. It was I think Chickasaws were there, and Cherokees were there, and several other tribes. But through that, you know, the hardships that we went through, or our ancestors went through, you know, we need to kind of remember those things. And you know, even there, I got up and gave a speech, and we talked about the fires and the songs and the medicines and the things that we brought back with us, and there were several others that also spoke of these things too. But when it come down to it, I just wanted to let everybody know, whether it be here in Tulsa or you know, back home with our ceremonial grounds, that we all are still here. And again, thank you for coming out today and being with us. I appreciate it. And I want to thank all the leaders here too. Thank you.
Before I introduce the dignitaries and our princess, I just want to expand on what Second Chief had mentioned.
History. With ever-increasing pressure from southern white settlers to increase the size of their cotton kingdoms, President Andrew Jackson readily signed the Indian Removal Act in 1830. The act ultimately led to the deportation of Native peoples in the southeast United States to Indian Territory, which was west of the Mississippi River. The 1832 Treaty of Cassetta ceded all Muskogee land claims in Georgia and Alabama. With no more ancestral homelands remaining in their grasp, the Muskogee people that remained were forced into stockades at Fort Mitchell, Alabama, to await their westward journey. Despite treaty obligations of land reserves in Southeast, the federal government forced removal upon more than 20,000 Muskogee people to unknown lands west of the Mississippi. From the summer of 1836 to the spring of 1837, 3,500 Muskogee people died on a long walk that would become known as the Trail of Tears. The people of Lojaboga arrived in Indian Territory in 1836. In a ceremony proclaiming their arrival and establishing their new home, they placed the ashes from their original fires at the base of a towering oak. At this place, on a hill overlooking the Arkansas River, they brought to life a new fire. The site referred to as Tulsa's first city hall, and now known as the Creek Nation Council Oak Park, was listed in the National Register of Historic Places in 1992. Mado.
Hello. Next, Miss Princess, Miss Emily Proctor.
Hintsche. Lojaboga is a daughter town of Tulsi, Old Tulsa, and sister town of Tulsi Ajinahachi, Tulsa Cedar River, also called New Tulsa. It is a descendant of Kusa and related to Ojiabova, Hickory Ground, Akfeski, and Tolomojazi. The common translation for Lojaboga is turtle meeting place. Another translation is turtle fades away. As the city of Tulsa grew, disturbances in their ceremonies forced the tribal town to look for a new home. Unable to find a suitable site, the Lojaboga took the embers of their fire and put them in with their sister town, New Tulsa. Like so many of the original tribal towns, Lojaboga became an inactive ground, but even so, the site marked by the Council Oak became important to the Mvskoke Creek tribe. 44 tribal towns resettled in Indian Territory, and now 16 remain active. They are Alabama, Arbika, Duck Creek, Fish Pond, Greenleaf, Hickory Ground, Hilabi, Kellyville, Polecat, New Tulsa, Nuyaka, Akfeski, Peach Ground, Sand Creek, Iron Post, Tallahassee, Cromwell, Tallahassee, Wagogai, and Wilgofki. Today we gather here to honor our ancestors and acknowledge their struggles and contributions as we celebrate the people that perpetuate traditional Mvskoke culture. Mado.
Well, since the mayor didn't show up, we'll just take over the city here. Again. It was great a couple weeks ago to be with the mayor when they declared Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples Day, and Native American Day. And so I'm happy for him that he recognized their presence and honors it and respects it, and pleased that I could read his proclamation to everyone today. And I think he stole it from Aisha because her remarks are very much embedded in here, so please bear with me. Whereas in 1830, President Andrew Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act, which led to the deportation of indigenous people in the southeastern United States to Indian Territory west of the Mississippi River, and the 1832 Treaty of Cassetta ceded all Muskogee land claims in Georgia and Alabama. With no more ancestral homelands remaining in their grasp, the Muskogee people were forced to stockades at Fort Mitchell, Alabama, to await their journey. And whereas, despite treaty obligations of land reserves in the southeast, the federal government forced removal upon more than 20,000 Mvskoke people to unknown lands west of the Mississippi. And whereas, upon their arrival in 1836, the Lojaboga proclaimed their perpetual existence in this new home in Tulsa in the Indian Territory by depositing ashes from their fires at the base of an oak tree on a hill overlooking the Arkansas River. And whereas this specific location was referred to Tulsa's first city hall and is now known as Mvskoke Creek Nation Council Oak Park. Now therefore, I, G.T. Bynum, Mayor of the City of Tulsa, do by hereby proclaim, let's just say complain, proclaim October 21st as Council Oak Ceremony Day in the City of Tulsa, signed G.T. Bynum, Mayor.
For the closing remarks and dismissal, I've asked Chibon Colonel to do both of them. If we could pause for just a moment as we acknowledge the significance of this day, that for many of us that have come here year after year and have heard the proclamations and even have at a few times enjoyed the presence of the mayor of the city of Tulsa, let it never go as unsignificant the moment that we take to recognize the origins of the city of Tulsa, and never go unrecognized the presence of our Mvskoke people and we as indigenous peoples. And so today, let it be known that we recognize the sacrifices and all of those things that those that have gone on before us, that they did for us to be here, all the decisions that they had to make at some point or another, whether it was to make an agreement to be removed here, or whether it was to make an agreement to go to battle, to defend our way of life. A moment like this recognizes that despite the history that all of our tribal peoples have been through, that in this day and age, in this one moment, that we can stand here as the Creator made us. And so let it not go as a moment of insignificance that we recognize this day and the original inhabitants of this city area. And with that, I am always indebted to those elders that have allowed us to be here, those bearers of our language, those bearers of our way of life, our spiritualities, things that have allowed us to survive these circumstances. And even as I come here, I'm humbled to be in the presence of each of you, and in the presence of our little ones, our children that are here, and especially in the presence of our Mvskoke over here that sit right here in front of us. For without the things that each one of them does for their respective communities, it would be hard to imagine us existing in this day and age. And so as we join the echoes of recognition this afternoon, let us utter a word of thanks to our Creator for the moment, for this time, for our governmental leadership, for the Mvskoke Creek Nation, for the leadership of the National Council, for the leadership of our elders and our families, all those that have made a way for this moment to take place, even if it was for just us to be here to celebrate. Not one thing that goes on in life around us should ever go unnoticed, because it is all of those characteristics that make us who we are today. those things that may not be written in books, they may not be videotaped, but yet for some reason they craft who we are today. Our clans, all of those things that allow us to be able to live life in this manner. And so with that, I would just ask if you would just pause with me as I do, if I say this little a prayer as best as I can to dismiss us from this moment, as we have done the best that we can to honor those that are in our way of life. We say they're still in our midst, that we're not that far separated from those that dwell in the other realm, the spirit world, that maybe they might know that even in this day and age, we're doing the best that we can to walk as closely as we can in the same footsteps that they laid before us. And so if you will allow me, and if those that feel willing to, you can rise, or however you want to see fit for this moment, we'll say this little word of prayer. Gracious God, our Creator, it is in your world that we have come into existence, that for whatever reason you have saw fit for us to see this day, that our elders told us that it was never promised to us, but for some reason we stand here before each other. We stand here enjoying the gift of life. And we say thank you for this moment. We also acknowledge all those that have gone before us. And we thank you for the gift of life that they carried for us, the gift of our way of life that they were able to maintain so that we would have a way. We pray that your Spirit would just help us out in this day and age as we do all that we can to continue our existence in this creation. We pray that you would help us out, for we know that sometimes life is very hard, but yet life is meant to be enjoyed. And we pray that your Spirit would just help us at this hour, that you would be with our elders, those that have lost loved ones. We pray that you would be with even those that have maybe served our country, those veterans out there. Whatever that they're going through in life, we ask that you would take care of them. We ask that you would be with our traditional peoples, wherever they may be, that they may be able to provide whatever they need for their communities. We ask that you would just be with us as your people, for none of these things would be here for us if it wasn't for you, Creator. And we pray that your Spirit would be with us as we do the best that we can to live a life that is honorable and respectable in your sight. May your Spirit be with us throughout this day. Mado.
As we dismiss, the Tulsa Creek Indian community at 3:30 will host a social stickball game. 5 p.m. to dinner, and 6 o'clock they'll have a stomp dance as well. So I want to appreciate everyone coming, and thank you, Chaman Colonel, for your words. And that should conclude in this. Mado.
Oh, your guest? Hi, I'm Gary Fife with Mvskoke Radio. What's your name?
Janetta Arjo.
Where you from?
I'm from Shawnee, but I'm from Hannah. I belong to Hilabi Ceremonial Ground.
Why is it important for this ceremony here today to take place in Tulsa?
I guess this is where we started from the removal. So I guess it's very significant that, it should be here. This is where we started. This is where we will always come, to show our respect for our elders that sacrificed their lives for us to be here.
Is it important to remind Tulsa and the state of Oklahoma that we still are here, just like that tree?
Yeah, I guess. Well, so long as we know that who we are, that's. And then I really don't see why we have to prove anything to anybody else, so long as we know who we are and where we come from and where we're going, and we will always be here, So.
Middle. Once you put an ID on the segment, what's your name?
Robert Anque.
And where are you from?
I am Tulsa.
Okay, why is it important for a ceremony like Council Oak to occur here?
I think it's important that we carry on this, not only tradition, but this recognition. It's more of a ceremony such that the Mvskoke Creek people put this in place many years ago. It's important. It's important that the Mvskoke carry on this tradition and acknowledge the bringing up the fire and move and relocation of the people to this part of Oklahoma. I think it's important that they continue to do this. And as a non-Mvskoke tribe member, it's nice to watch. It's nice to watch to see that acknowledgement and recognition, and to view and recognize those elders and those individuals that were here many years ago, the ancestors of these individuals that are present here. So it's very important that they carry on that tradition.
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me get an ID on this segment, your name and where you're from.
My name is James Jennings. I'm the National Council representative from the Okmulgee District.
Do you have some ties to this piece of ground here?
I do. I'm a Mvskoke Creek citizen. And
why is it so important for this ceremony to take place in Tulsa?
This here is the home place of the Mvskoke Creek, and when we were removed, this is where our ancestors settled. And this is a great day for Mvskoke Creek people.
Is it important that we remind the city of Tulsa and the state of Oklahoma that, like that tree, we're still here?
Exactly. And I've been coming here, this makes about my 10th time to be at this ceremony. And I think that out of those 10 times I've been here, the mayor from Tulsa's only been here about twice. Kathy Taylor never came, and Mr. Bynum didn't show up today. But the Creek people still come back here. And it doesn't mean anything to maybe the city government of Tulsa, but it does to Creek people.
Any final thoughts?
No, I just hope to see you here next year.
No.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let me get your name and where you're from.
My name's Joy Reynolds, and I'm from Sapapa.
Why is it important for ceremonies like this to take place in Tulsa?
It was so that the Mvskoke Creek people that are in this area, that are in Tulsa, are aware of our tribe and our heritage, our traditions, our culture. There's a lot of young people here that of our heritage, and they don't know anything about our traditions, and it's good that they learn about us.
What about reminding the city of Tulsa and the state of Oklahoma that we're, like that tree, we're still here?
Yeah, I think they need to be more aware and maybe appreciate our traditions, our culture, and that we are still here because, we came here over the Trail of Tears, and maybe, they just learn to appreciate us a little more and be aware of our culture and that we are still here.
Can I ask you a couple questions?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, first of all, let me put an ID on the segment. What's your name and where you're from?
Okay, Chabon Colonel, Hilubi Ceremonial Grounds, but I live in Oklahoma City.
Why is it important for ceremonies like this to take place in Tulsa?
It's very important because, as I was telling some of the participants today, that some of the stories about the origins of Tulsa, even the origins of Native peoples in general, are not taught in our schools or in history books. So days like today, when we take it upon ourselves to educate the community, educate our people, are so vital because we're the ones dictating what our history is, not an outside entity. So this is much more crucial for us as Mvskoke people.
Is it important for us to remind the city of Tulsa and the state that we're still here, like that tree?
at every moment it is vital that we remind the city of Tulsa, the state of Oklahoma, the United States of America, that we as Native peoples are still here. And thankfully, the city of Tulsa itself has made moments where it acknowledges at least our presence.
Okay,
Thank you.
no problem. I've been a reporter for 40 years, and believe me, this is easy. Okay, we're speaking now with Principal Chief James Floyd. Same question I've been asking the other folks here. Why is it important that this kind of ceremony take place here in Tulsa?
Well, I think that, to me personally, the importance is that we pay our respect. And we make sure that there's an occasion to do that, and the occasion is today, and to always remember, that a lot of people lost their lives and sacrificed for us to enjoy the life we have now, and the fact that this is where they first settled. And so to come to the original place, the original fire was in Indian Territory here in Tulsa, it seems like a ritual, but it's something that we should always remember to do. And so we had great weather today, and the ceremony went well and well attended, and so I'm very pleased about today's ceremony.
Why is it important for us to remind the city of Tulsa and the state of Oklahoma that, as they say, like that tree, we're still here?
Well, I think it's important for several reasons. One is that, we were the original inhabitants, and they should always remember that the city makes decisions that they keep us in mind, and they have. And we've been very fortunate that they've talked to us many times about decisions that they're making, because it's our culture as well. It should be implanted in the city of Tulsa. And, the other is to always remember to protect this area, because, there's development nearby. And I wish it wasn't here. I wish someday we could start to take some of those down and return to its natural state, but we'll see how that works out. But the fact that the mayor has reached out to us several times since he's been in office and asked our opinion about things, I think shows respect to us, and us showing respect for our ancestors. It just kind of goes full circle.
Since we're in that arena, I think I detected a couple of notes of wishful thinking during your remarks. One, that since the mayor wasn't here, maybe we should just take over.
Yeah, that would be great, I think. We're blessed, though, that we have the Greater Tulsa Area Native American Council that advises the mayor. We, with our businesses here in Tulsa, are a huge contributor to the tax base to the city of Tulsa. So I think now they know that we're here. And so hopefully we actually get a bigger share of the city in their time and their interest in us. So I hope that works that way.
Okay, the second thing I caught was you almost substituted the word complain for proclaim. Was there a little wishful thought there?
Maybe a Freudian slip there or something, but no, I don't have anything to complain about. And to be able to read the mayor's proclamation to me was an honor to do so, and the work that they've done to keep this place up is great. So yeah, nothing to complain about. I don't know why that got in my mind.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, Mado, appreciate it. Now, let me get your name and where you're from.
Natasha McIntosh. I'm from Tahlequah.
Okay, why is it important for ceremonies like this to take place here in Tulsa?
I think it's important for our heritage to make sure that we have something that we can root ourselves back to, and I think it's really neat that we have a tree that represents that, just to bring us back to our roots. So it's really symbolic of our culture and our heritage. So I think it's really neat.
Now, the thought occurs to me: is it important for us to remind the city of Tulsa and the state of Oklahoma that, like this tree that we're standing in front of, we're still here?
I think it very much so. Like Second Chief said in his speech that he went to different states and he said there was something saying that we were still here. And I think that's relevant for us to make sure that we're still known and our presence is still here, and that we need to make sure that other people, especially within the community of Tulsa, that they know that we're still here. So I think it's very important.
He's asking you.
Yeah.
Anything in particular? Or just...
Well, this actually. Let me get your name and where you're from.
Okay. I'm Margot Smith. I was born in Minnesota, but lived in Oklahoma till I went off to boarding school at 16. And then I went away out into the big world. And I have 2 daughters, and we lived in Georgia for about 17 years. They sort of grow up there. Yeah, so, and I have a picture of me standing in the doorway of one of the mounds before we left.
Mvskoke or Anishinaabe?
Oh, Mvskoke.
Okay. Now, why is it important for ceremonies like this to take place?
Because it's to remind people that about us, give them a little education, and because from what I hear, other Oklahomans know less about us and the tribes here than say Europeans, and they really need a lot of education about who we are, all the tribes here.
Now, it's important then, you feel, that we remind the city of Tulsa and the state that like that tree, we're still here.
Mm-hmm. I love this tree. I took a class at TU one time about plants, and the professor mentioned, I think it was after the ice storm, she mentioned that, and I don't think the other students really got it, but I knew what she was talking about, that this oak tree withstood all that, whereas a lot of other trees unfortunately didn't. And she said it was a bit of a mystery why this happened, that this oak tree in particular was able to survive.
I don't think it was much of a mystery to us.
We don't.
I understand it's also been hit by lightning a couple of times.
Really? I wouldn't doubt it.
Well, the city actually installed lightning rods in it, so it wouldn't.
Really? Oh, well, maybe that helped a little bit.
Could be. All right. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right. What's your name? Where are you from?
My name's Simon Harry from around Eastern Mounds.
Why is it important for ceremonies like this to take place?
Say that again.
Why is it important for ceremonies like the Council Oak ceremony here to take place? Why is it? Why should Tulsa know?
Well, it's been that way quite a while now, and the older ones used to have stomp dance down here, down in this flat place down there. And what a ceremony! It's a religious. I want to talk to you a little bit about myself.
Okay.
And my ground.
Which grounds are those?
Duck Creek.
Mm-hmm.
It's a husky.
Yeah.
And one time we had our green corn dance. Danced all day that day. And that evening, we had a song, a lizard dance song. We danced that last. So we all sat under the arbor and sat there and talk. I talked to them. When you get through eating supper, you gotta come back for the evening dance. They call it old folks dance. So when they all got through and they got ready to start again. And I talked to them again. I told the boys, we got 4 boys.
You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Madam.
Join the Brew Crew. You might be our next winner. Text BREW to 30218 for your chance to win from 1240 The Brew. 1240 KOKL, Okmulgee, Oklahoma.